In the late 1970s, the Chinese government created a law that was unlike anything the world had ever seen before. It didn't control crime, it didn't control money, it controlled life itself. And for more than 3 decades, this law would dictate who lived, who died, and who was never allowed to exist at all. This is the story of the one-child policy and the millions of children who vanished because of it. It started in 1979. China was terrified that its population was growing too fast, and leaders feared famine, poverty, even collapse. Their solution was simple: 1 child per family, no exceptions. On paper, it sounded like discipline. In reality, it was a deal with the devil, because overnight, every parent in China was given a choice: obey the state or risk everything. If you had more than 1 child, you could lose your job, you could lose your home, you could be fined so much money, your family would never recover, and in some cases, the state would force you to end the pregnancy. But here's where it got even darker. For centuries, Chinese families had valued sons over daughters. Sons carried the family name. Sons were supposed to care for aging parents. And now that they were only allowed 1 shot at having a child, that old tradition turned deadly. Across the country, baby girls were abandoned. Some were left on the steps of orphanages. Others were quietly erased, never registered, never named, never counted. When ultrasound machines spread through hospitals in the 1980s, parents began using them as weapons, discovering the gender early and ending pregnancies if the baby was a girl. By the 1990s, the numbers told a horrifying truth. For every 100 girls born in China, as many as 120 boys were being born. That might sound small, but at the scale of China's population, it meant millions of daughters were simply missing. And this led to something the government never predicted. By the 2000s, entire generations of men grew up without women to marry. In some villages, the ratio was so skewed, people called them bachelor villages. Trafficking of women from poorer regions exploded. Some men turned to crime, others to violence. And for millions more, it meant a life of loneliness, with no partner, no children, and no future. The government realized the disaster they had created, so they tried to fix it. First, they made it illegal to find out the sex of your baby during pregnancy, unless it was for medical reasons. Abortion based on gender was banned. Doctors and hospitals caught revealing a baby's sex could lose their license or even face prison. On paper, this was progress. In reality, enforcement was spotty. In many places, the old practices continued in secret. Next came propaganda campaigns. Huge red banners were stretched across villages with slogans like, "Girls are as good as boys." Schools and state media began telling stories of successful women, doctors, teachers, scientists, trying to convince parents that daughters could be just as valuable. In some provinces, families with only daughters were even given financial rewards, pension support, extra land, or help with education costs. It was the government's way of saying, having a girl won't ruin your future. But here's the truth. These fixes came too late. By the time the policy ended in 2015, the damage was already permanent. Today, China has an aging population, a shrinking workforce, and a gap so large it can't be ignored. As of the 2020 census, China had nearly 30 million more men than women. That's 30 million lives shaped by a ghost, a missing partner, a missing child, a missing future. A shadow cast by a policy that was supposed to bring stability, but instead brought silence. The daughters are still missing, and their absence still haunts the living.